Welcome to Uplifting Humans, where we honor, empower, educate, and inspire the listener. I'm Cylindrin Buller, your host. Our guest today is Kia Baker, the creator and host of the Female Veterans Podcast. She holds an MBA in finance and in accounting, is also an alumni of the Milton Hershey School. She served in the U.S. Navy and spent 20 years helping other veterans make the transition from active duty to civilian life. Her passion is for empowering women and veterans while sharing real female veteran stories and helping in many, many other ways within the community. Welcome, Kia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, well, this is really an honor to be able to interview someone that I call a mentor. And, I'm just, I've got hormones racing, I've got butterflies in the stomach, but I'm so glad that you've taken out this time. So thank you. How's your day been so far?
Beautiful, amazing.
Great. Okay, so I know that you're a mother, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, coach, and you are wearing so many different hats. You give selflessly to the homeless. You share other things that you're doing just in our audience. If you could just express that, share with us all the different things that you're doing so that the audience has a real picture of who I consider superwoman.
Oh, that's really lovely. I actually really love to coach. And so working with the London Real Academy has given me the opportunity to touch a lot of lives and to help facilitate a rapid growth transformation within people. And that is such a gift. That's such a blessing. In addition to that, I'm a newly single mom of 2 boys who I adore more than anything. And so I'm adapting to that life. And I also created and host the Female Veterans Podcast, where I give a platform to female veterans to share their story with the hope of diminishing the culture of silence surrounding our active duty experiences, because you just don't hear about it. The public doesn't hear about it. And in fact, the perception of the veteran is still largely considered male. So we're breaking down those barriers at the Female Veterans Podcast. We're changing those perceptions, and we're standing in our power. And in addition to that, I am the co-host of Hot Topics Live and Hot Topics, the podcast, which is the podcast form of Hot Topics Live, where we interview podcast hosts and influential people who can share their value with the community, with the global community, in order to put some good out into the world, raise the vibration, of the planet, and just share positive energy with everyone whom we can come in contact with. And we talk about everything. In fact, we're always looking for topics to discuss. For example, today we're going live at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we go live on every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And we have a topic this week of relationships, because it's Valentine's Day tomorrow. And all month long, we have been talking to people about relationships and, advice and strategies and how to effectively communicate and create beautiful, loving relationships. So that's one thing that we're doing. And next month, we're doing Strong, Empowering Women. So it's just an incredible experience to be able to talk to people and learn from them and share their value with the global community. And in addition to that, I just returned from Kansas, where I shadowed an organization, a not-for-profit, who has created a home for homeless male veterans. And they graduated 90 male veterans and helped them holistically transition from homelessness back to thriving in life. And it's such a beautiful organization that I wanted to find out everything that they do and everything that they're doing in order to create one for females out here where I am in Washington State. And so I've got a 1.5 year projected timeline to create this not-for-profit that will be called Artemisia, and we'll provide a home where we can take women in off the streets and rehabilitate them back to thriving in life. And So that's a big vision for me. In addition to working with them to help bring Homefront to life, which is a veteran home community. It's a neighborhood where they will be taking homeless veterans, males, females, and families off the street and helping them through this gated community get the resources that they need to return to life, to thrive in life, and provide a home for them, an actual cottage home in a all veteran community with a playground and a dog park and just an amphitheater and a resource center. And then
Nice.
this is on 53 acres in Wichita, Kansas. And then there's another set of acres, I think 19, where they're going to have hospice for senior and nursing care for senior veterans that they can get off the street or that need to come out of homes where they're not being provided for, they can't afford. They'll have a place to go. And the mission is so beautiful that I could not help but get involved with that. And so I actually spoke before the mayor just a few days ago to help ensure that they would get a grant from the city to help them build their mental health facility. So, I mean, this project is huge. And these two women, Jennifer and Susan from Passageways in Kansas, have just this grand vision where it's a grassroots campaign to raise this money to build this facility, this beautiful place for veterans that has a safe room for, veterans that have PTSD. And it's just such a beautiful thing to be a part of. So that's pretty much everything that I'm doing in addition to, coaching.
Wow. I mean, and there you go. I'm sure everyone in the audience is just thinking, how do you fit all of that into a day?
I don't know.
Well, more power to you. I'll tell you, if everyone stepped into those big shoes just like you, this world would be a different place. And I'm just amazed at what you can do, because I mean, you've got two boys and they're young.
Yes, 13 and 4.
Well, there you go. So you've got a 13-year-old and a 4-year-old, and here you are out there in the community, shaking it up and making sure everyone's taken care of. Like, how beautiful is that? So you're involved with all of these organizations, and I know that at one point you shared with the audience that you bring a lot of the stories of the veterans forward. Can you share something that really sticks out after, all the episodes that you've done, that even to this day, is still there with you, a part of you?
All of them.
All of them. Wow.
Every single story that I hear sticks with me.
Wow.
Especially the sad ones. Every woman that I speak to leaves a piece of advice.
Yes.
And that advice is amazing to help another sister who's coming behind them, because you never know if your story might be someone else's survival guide. So the advice is a crucial part of the show. But every story leaves me with something, and every one of these women that I speak to touches my life personally. And there are a few that sometimes keep me up at night, just thinking about some of the horror stories and realizing that these things really do happen to people. They happen to women. Season 2, episodes 8 and 9 are my dear friend Christina's story. And she is right now on hospice, or she should be. She's not, but she should be in hospice because they don't know when she's going to pass away. But she's an incredible human being. She's an incredible woman. She's been fighting tirelessly to make the public aware of burn pits and how they affect the human body, and how the government has been sort of denying the impact of service members who have worked in an environment where they've been burning garbage or burning feces 24/7. And so she was worked in the galley. So she was a cook, and she worked in this environment after 9/11 in Balad in Iraq.
Yes.
And not only is she a survivor of a brutal military sexual trauma, which she shares very candidly. She was then bullied and harassed within the service
Mm.
by her own unit, her own superiors, who turned her from the victim into
Mm.
a perpetrator
Oh.
and shamed her and victimized her until they completely kicked her out of the military. They just sent her packing. And after that, she was not eligible for health care. And so when the symptoms first started arising from in her lungs, she wasn't able to get care, proper care.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she's a fighter, so she kept fighting. And she finally, little by little, began to get the care. They changed her discharge at the Department of the Army. So they recognized her as having served. So then she could get care, but she could only get care for the military sexual trauma. And then she had to fight to be able to get full medical benefits to find out what was going wrong with her lungs, at which point she was told she had asthma. And
Oh.
then it turns out, of course, to make a very long story short, that she has cancer. She has a condition where carbon monoxide builds up in her lungs. So that's going to slowly suffocate her. Her trachea is collapsing. And all of these things could have been sort of more properly managed had she just gotten the care she needed, had she just not been discharged the way she was. Like these things that happened, they cost her life essentially. And it's just like with Agent Orange, the government in general has sort of swept it under the rug, and she's been tireless to this day is still fighting to bring awareness and to change things for other veterans, because that's what we do. We continue to want to serve after we've served. So and that sticks with me. That sticks with me all the time. She's my children's age, and to think that she's a woman whose life is lost, and she continues to fight, and she was treated like a liar the entire time. So that's what really caused a lot of this to be worse. That's one. There was another story of a girl who served for only 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
During that time, she was harassed by a superior until she had a breakdown, at which point, within a few months, she was sent out of the military because she had a breakdown because of the stalking and harassing behavior from her superior. And for the next 25 years, she struggled with the trauma of what happened to her. It had been her dream to be in the military. She wanted a career. It was destroyed by a sick man. And it just, it was the first time that I ever sort of lost my temper because I thought, oh my God, here was this girl at 18, 19 years old, 1 year in the military cost her the next 25 years of trying to heal a trauma.
Where do you think, Kia, where do you think that these perpetrators, where are they coming from when they're doing these things? Like, it seems like that the more that you hear, the more that is revealed, and that this is almost like an ongoing common thing, and nobody's doing anything about it.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think it's 1 in 3 now, was
Oh.
1 in 4, but 1 in 3 women are survivors of military sexual trauma that has been reported. I talked to a lot of women, several that I've interviewed on the show, and so I have women that come and talk to me in private as well. They're not ready to share on the show.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, there are so many that don't even report because they see what happens to other people. Yes. When they do report, so that they don't want to report it, and that's a whole nother set of trauma that then they have to deal with on top of the trauma because they didn't get their justice.
That's right, because
so
yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's so common. it's disturbingly common, but at the same time, big government is trying to make changes. It's just that it takes a long time to trickle down to the bottom. And also, there's been so many years of this good old boys, male-dominated environment that it's really an ingrained part of the culture of being in the military.
Yes. Yeah.
So it is really it is really something that needs to change, and it's slow going for the
Mhm.
changes.
Well, and the thing is that it's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take leadership. It's going to take individuals like you that are there to support these women, because you're very, very vulnerable. And especially when you have children yourself, you imagine, you could probably take the heat yourself, but how do you help the children, right?
Hmm.
And that's a whole different ball of wax. Now, some of the other work that you're doing, which is helping the homeless and stuff, can you touch on that a little bit more, please?
Yes, well, last year I decided that I wanted to do more for the veteran community because my baby was about to start school.
Okay.
And my oldest was headed into 8th grade and would soon be in high school, and my baby will soon be in kindergarten. And I realized that I had time on my hands
Yeah.
after being a stay-home mom. While I was a stay-home mom, I pursued my degrees and my
Yes.
graduate studies.
Mhm.
And I knew there was going to come a time where I was going to re-enter the workforce, and what I considered my encore career, right after
Right.
being a
Yeah.
stay-home mom. I
Yeah.
left corporate to do that.
Yeah.
And I I just felt like it was time for me to do something. So I met with my business mentor and we were discussing what I would do as I wanted to share more about female veterans. And I'm passionate about helping female veterans, helping my sisters. And we went to the vet center in Los Angeles and Culver City, and we spoke with the outreach coordinator there, a lovely lady named Sharon. And she told me that if there was something that I was going to do for female veterans, more than passing out food, because we were just going to go out and pass out food that day, um, she said, give them a voice. She said, because we don't get donations for the females. When
Mhm.
we go to do our outreach work, we have coats and boots and shoes and things for the men, but we just don't get the donations for the women because people don't think of women as veterans even to this day.
Wow.
And that was 2019. Okay, so
Oh, geez.
I just felt, and I was so moved that I thought I have got to do something. So I decided that I was going to start speaking. But the
Nice.
more I learned about speaking and public speaking, I learned that um, you almost needed to have an audience already in
Yes.
order to really do that
Mhm.
and be effective at it. So that's when I realized the podcast was going to be a way that I could start breaking down the perception
Mhm.
of veterans being male.
Nice.
Mhm.
So much work, so much heart. It's just like you. I hats off to you.
Thank
Now
you.
now I know that you love quantum physics,
I do.
and so can you share some of that, because there's a lot of people that are out there, they don't even know what quantum physics is, let alone how do you apply any of that to your life?
Well, I mean, there's two schools of thought on that, and there is quantum physics where you study particles and energy waves on a subatomic level, and it's total science. But I love the part of how that applies to the law of attraction. And
Mhm.
it's the scientific, if you will, explanation of how that law actually works. And we are all vibrating on a frequency. We're all, waves, and we go from at a subatomic level. There's waves and there's particles. So there's solid and energy, and it goes back and forth. And on this level, there is a field of it's called the quantum field of infinite possibilities, right? So, and any potential outcome is already in existence. And we broadcast basically a signal um, by our thoughts of what we want into this field. And our feelings is what magnetizes that outcome back to us. And so that is so interesting to me.
Yes.
So I apply that in my life. I became aware of it in my late 20s, which was a blessing. And somewhere along the way, I sort of lost that. But as over the years, I sort of worked my way back into the study of it through, I'm a huge supporter of Dr. Joe Dispenza. So his work is incredible to me.
Yes.
Uh, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, like all of these amazing thought leaders
Yes.
that that I just love their work. So I think probably Dr. Joe Dispenza breaks it down on a scientific way that I love probably the most.
Mm-hmm.
And just understanding that you can potentially shift your entire reality. It's called shifting your paradigm by virtue of your thoughts is just an incredible thing to me. And understanding the power of the option to choose, the power and choice is just, it's something that you can really change your life. And it begins with knowing that you can create your own outcome and knowing that it's your choices
Mm-hmm.
that will allow that outcome to happen. So for me, my life changed very rapidly because I made a choice to
Yeah.
change my paradigm. And that
Yeah.
was the first thing. And
Mm-hmm.
the second choice I made was to really sit down. And my method is just sort of unconventional. I have to be in bed. I have to lay down in bed for maybe a day or two, sometimes more, depending on what brought me to the need to make a decision to change.
Yeah.
Usually it's pain. Pain is a great motivator.
Yeah.
And
Of
for
course.
me, that has usually typically been, my motivator to make a big change in my life. And
Yes.
so usually when we're sad and depressed, we're in bed anyway. So that's kind of how it happens for me. I'm
Yeah.
usually in bed and I just have to figure out what it is I want.
Nice.
I'm confused until I know what I want because I understand that once I know what I want, I can have it.
Yes.
I just have to be sure that that's what I want because sometimes you think you want something and then you get it, you're like, I didn't want that. That was a bad choice or a
Time to
mistake.
scrap it. Yeah.
So it's just, I like to try to be sure before I try to attract something to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Sometimes you attract what you want, and then later on you did want it, but then you realize you want something else. And it's just a process that you go through over and over again. But usually once I know what I want,
Mm-hmm.
then I know that I can achieve that. I can make that happen. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just thoughts. So I don't want to make it sound like you just think something and then it appears. It's the decision. It's the decision of what you want and then visualizing it and then creating an action plan to actually make it happen and then following through with that plan and tweaking it if need be. But you can rapidly shift your paradigm by the power of belief that you can.
That's right. That's right. Because you're co-creating. And isn't that beautiful?
That's right.
So I know that you had said to me that you love to dance to shift your vibrations.
Yes.
Explain that. Why do you love to dance to shift that?
Well, I've always loved dancing. So that's the beginning. And I probably, had I known when I was younger that it was an option for a career, I probably would have spent a portion of my life being a dancer for some singer or something going on.
Nice.
But I do love to dance. I do love choreography and everything like that. But I think for shifting my vibration, I think dancing, I mean, you have to find something you love. So really it's anything artistic. Sometimes I paint. Sometimes I paint to shift my vibration.
Oh, nice.
Sometimes I journal or I read poetry or I'll read an amazing book. That shifts my vibration. But dancing is my favorite because you really can just go into reckless abandon. You can really just put the music on and just get into the beat, get into the flow, and it's very flowy. So it's like moving energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's moving the energy of your body because of the way you're moving. And
Yeah.
that just shifts you. It just creates a powerful movement because you're changing your vibration as you're flowing through the music.
Isn't that great? And I know that there's a real understanding out there that if you're in a happy place, you're able to create something much faster than if you're not in such a happy place. So it's important that you're doing all those things that you're doing, painting, dancing, singing, whatever it is. That's awesome. Now, explain to us when you say embrace your divine feminine.
Yes.
Now, first, what is divine feminine? And then how do you embrace it? How does Kia embrace it?
Okay, so we are meant to be balanced individuals, right? And we have, our light side and our dark side, and so we have our upside and our downside, and we also have our masculine side and our feminine side of us. And characteristically masculine traits, such as being goal oriented, going after what you want, being driven, being ambitious, not backing down from a fight, like those things, those are typically male traits. Then
Yes.
we have our feminine side, which is our softer side, the side that loves to cuddle and loves, to be pretty and soft and warm and nurturing, our like motherly side, to us. So we have these two sides. And when they're out of balance, you can come across, like if you're a more male dominated person, you can come across as maybe a little harsh. You can be like, I like to say, a woman of the 90s, which is when I grew up. And it was important to be this really strong, really powerful girl power type of woman who, kicked down doors and took no prisoners and, was hard charging. And that was what you wanted to be when I was a teenager, when I was a young woman,
Right.
is you wanted to be that woman. And that was great for me in corporate America. That worked really well. But somewhere along the way, my softer side got a little lost in that. And that ability to communicate in a gentle way and to be loving and nurturing and just in a softer and warmer way, got a little bit lost in that, because I felt like I didn't want to be taken advantage of, and I needed to, be strong. And I grew up in kind of a tough neighborhood in the city when I was in the city. And when I was in private school, I was in the country, and I still had to be a little tough there. So, I mean, just by virtue of being away from home. So I grew up with this need of these traits that made me a harder person. And getting older, I began to realize that the world needs more nurturing. The world needs more loving energy. And I am that, and authentically, I'm a loving person. I love to say I am love. That's like my quote. And I feel that if I don't channel that love out, I'll likely implode. So coaching and being a mom and doing things that allow me to share love energy in a soft and kind and warm and nurturing way really feels good to me. That's what I need to feel good. Yeah. So, and I believe that life is meant to feel good. We're not meant to be here to be miserable. We're meant to be able to be blissful and happy. And if you're not, that's like an indication that you need to look at your life and shift some things, shift your paradigm, right? And so for me, the divine feminine is just that. The divine feminine is that part of us women being reignited at this time. For some reason, it's just the time is right for women to stand up, but maybe not in a hard charging way, but who we are as our divine, beautiful selves, with our warmth and our nurturing and our love and our compassion, and sort of put that energy out into the world to help it heal. Because obviously this male dominated world that we've been living in is not working very well. We're seeing all the traits of a lot of negativity. And I think, and this is just my opinion, is that it's time for us women to sort of step into leadership roles and use our male masculine traits to get us there. And while we're there, spread that warm, loving, nurturing energy to change the dynamic of the way things are run and actually bring a lot of healing to the global community.
And Kia, seeing that you are a mother and you have two young boys, have you spoken to them at length, or even, in conversation, in bringing that loving, nurturing side out? Because I know it is so important that a mother, especially with boys, brings that side. Has that ever come up in conversation?
Absolutely. I love to teach my boys. I think I'm trying to raise men. And being that we all have masculine and feminine, even males, they have a softer, warmer side that they are now, I think it's becoming more okay for them to lean into. Before it was, you can't cry, you can't show emotion, you have to be tough. And this is what generationally was passed down from father to son, right? Or from even mother to son, because that's the way the world was. But I think for me, and in the communities where I'm seeing a change where it is okay for boys to have emotions and to feel their feelings and to be loving and warm and still have all those traits of being strong. And it actually takes a bit more strength, I think, to be vulnerable. And it takes a bit more strength to be okay with showing and feeling your emotions. And it's difficult if you have a partner that is of a different frame of mind. So it's a constant, for me, it's a constant sort of undoing of another style of parenting. Right. And so I have to make sure that my voice is always in there as well, saying, you know what? I understand that you're a boy, but you can cry if you're sad. And it's okay to talk about your feelings to someone you trust. And it's okay to just lean into that softer side of yourself so that they're balanced. So my journey is always to ensure that they are balancing and finding their way so that when they grow up into men, that they treat women well, they treat themselves well, and they treat the world in general, the global community well.
And that's a beautiful thing, because it takes one mother to do the best job possible to change an entire generation, because it is contagious. It is contagious, good and bad. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Share a story now of a moment in your life when you had a major awakening or felt that life was more than what you ever thought it to be.
Well, I've had so many. But I will tell you, almost 2 years ago now, I was happily married. I was a stay-home mom. I was just living life. And I think the first thing that happened was my mom passed away. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure if I'm happy. That was the first catalyst for me. I thought, I'm not sure if I'm happy. I have degrees. I'm educated. I'm not sure if I'm happy as a stay-home mom anymore. My kids are getting bigger. I need to start thinking about my next phase. I'm not sure that I'm happy in this. I sort of felt like a maid, which is fine, but that's not what my goal was for my life. Yes. I felt kind of unfulfilled now that my babies weren't such babies anymore, right? And it was just a lot of cleaning up. You know how it is. There's a lot of cleaning up, and I thought I was really happy, but some part of me had always wanted to do more with my career. And because I am a disabled veteran, health issues after I got pregnant with my first child caused me to reevaluate and decide that, you know what, maybe it's better for me to be a stay-home mom. And it was actually equally as hard. So that was a big awakening for me, thinking, oh, since I'm not well right now, I should stay home and I'll just be a stay-home mom and that'll be easier than going to work every day. Right. That was a mistake. Actually, I think going to work probably would have been easier. But then after that, it was just a few months after my mom passed away that we had an incident happen in the home on the 4th of July. And it made me realize that I needed to change my entire life. I needed to leave my husband and I needed to create a new existence for myself, because I could not, from one day to the next, it was so sudden that I could not continue in the life that I'd been living.
Are you able to share with us that, or is that something that you're not comfortable in sharing still?
Well, what I will say is that sometimes you have warning signs that there's a kind of a ticking time bomb in a relationship. And you don't want to see it.
Yes.
And when you do, you can't unsee it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's as much as I can really say with respect to my ex-husband
Thank
and
you.
his family.
Yes.
But I had to make a shift.
Yes.
I had to change everything from
Mm-hmm.
one day to the next.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no going back. So that's when my journey began. I laid in bed for 5 days. And about the third day, something said, you need motivation. You need some help. So I turned on YouTube and I typed in motivation.
Okay.
I needed a pep talk.
Okay.
Right? And I couldn't go to my best friend because she was affected.
Yeah.
She was part of the situation.
Okay.
And I didn't want to go talking to a lot of people because I felt really humiliated already.
I'm losing you. If you can come back to the microphone, we can hardly hear you.
Okay, so I couldn't talk to really anybody about it because it was I already felt very humiliated. So the best thing for me was to go outside.
Yes.
And so I typed in motivation and I realized that there was a lot out there.
Yes.
And so the first thing I chose was a YouTube show called Impact Theory.
Okay.
And the first episode I saw was Jordan Harbinger, who is also a podcaster.
Yes.
And I watched his episode and I saw that he had lost everything. He built this show for 10 years. He's a podcasting pioneer, actually. He's an incredible person, a very nice guy. And I thought, oh my God, this guy is really smart. And he lost everything due to some drama. And he had to rebuild. Yeah. And I was like, that's where I'm at. I have to rebuild. Yeah. And then I watched another episode, and I think it was Joe Dispenza, and he was talking about shifting your paradigm. And I thought, what is shifting your paradigm? And I had to listen in. And then through there, I found the London Reel.
Yes.
And I started watching, it came up on the side as a recommendation. And I thought, who is this guy? He's so well dressed. I'm gonna watch his show. Yeah. So I clicked on that and I started watching that, and it was just all these thought leaders. And I gotta say, I think it's Tom Bilyeu. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He gives one mean motivational speech. Like, I clicked into some of his motivational speeches. Yes. And I could not stay in bed. Like, I had to get up and start moving and start really thinking about what my next phase was going to be. So once I realized that I could shift my paradigm, once I saw an example of someone who had lost everything and rebuilt to a huge success, I got really motivated. I got really motivated.
And I'm so glad you did, because the world needed you. It was waiting for you.
Well, I hope so. I hope that I can do great work and create change for people. The London Reel has really opened the door for me to do that on an individual person by person basis. Yes. Even though it's 8 weeks, yes. The rapid transformation of setting this goal and seeing it through and being accountable to create your vision and helping to facilitate that for people has been an incredibly surprising joy for my life. So I hope I can make a positive impact by helping others.
Listen, for someone who spent 5 days in bed, who had nowhere to turn and decided to get out of bed to, go to YouTube for motivation. I mean, look at where you are. Look at the work that you're doing, the lives that you're touching. I mean, if someone were to do half of what you're doing today, you know what, you're doing such an awesome job. Now, I know that we had spoken about shadow work. Mm-hmm. And you had said, I was, doing some shadow work and doing some integration. And I thought, you know what, we're going to have to bring that up. We're going to have to share with the audience that's out there right now. If anyone's in bed, you better stand up, start dancing, take note. So explain what shadow work is and how you integrate it.
Well, you know what? It's really about being self-aware. It's
Mm-hmm.
really about being able to face your own demons and face the things that are not quite, I don't know, not the happiest, not the darker aspects of yourselves, your own issues,
Yeah.
and being able to accept them and work on them, you know, and not avoid them. A lot of times we go through life. I'll give an example. My favorite thing to do was to watch TV and to watch movies.
Yeah.
Some people, and that's not a bad thing, but my reasoning was it was an escape.
Right.
Okay. So there were emotions that I was not willing to face. So in order to avoid them, I every day watched a ton of TV, and I would do my housework and everything, but always the TV was on. I would watch movies every night with my husband. That was like a big thing. We would just eat dinner and we'd watch movies. We would talk to each other, but I mean, everything was like everything was really superficial.
Mm.
We were both escaping our own inner turmoil for different things, different reasons.
Yes.
And the emotions that we were trying to avoid. Now, other people use drugs, other people use food or alcohol or shopping, or there's so many things that you can do to avoid the emotions that you don't want to face. So that is what I had to do, that I had to integrate. I had to look and see within myself the darker aspects, the things that I was trying to avoid, and actually give them a voice, actually journal them out, actually seek a coach, a therapist, actually do something, make a life change. For example, my first life change was I studied forensic accounting. I am 7 classes away from a second master's degree in forensic accounting. And I had to lose a kidney a few years ago because of illnesses relating back to my military career. And after I woke up from having that surgery, I realized that, working for the Securities and Exchange Commission, doing financial fraud, fighting that was not the goal for when I was going to return to work anymore.
Yes.
That was not what I needed. I had a greater purpose and I needed to find out what it was. And a lot of times I feel like if you are not living your true passion, if you're just existing in life like I was, then you are squashing down some emotions of discontent. You're numbing. I was numbing with TV and movies, sometimes with food, sometimes with shopping, sometimes with alcohol, whatever it was. But I wasn't facing what was really going on with me, is my point.
Right.
So when you face your shadow work and you face your darker self, you come to terms with those things. And maybe it's not to say that they go away necessarily, but you work on them and you come to terms with them. And it's always a process. It's always a work in process.
Right. And the minute that you actually shine your light on the shadow, it disappears. And so just bringing it into awareness has a shift, and that's beautiful. So the way you integrated that was that you went for therapy, you understood what you were doing, and you understood that there was a process that had to take place.
Yes. And to accept it and to just be okay that there's something there that, that I'm not necessarily proud of, but I'm not going to avoid it. I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not going to pretend that it's not existing, because that's a different type of suffering, making yourself suffer. It's like self-sabotage in a way.
Right, right. Now share a daily habit that you can't live without.
Meditation.
Yay!
I do love to journal.
Yeah.
I love to journal too, but meditation, I cannot not meditate. I have a hard time meditating on my own, but a good guided meditation gives me new life. And I start my day with 2 of them.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Now, where do you see yourself in a year from now? Because I know that it will be like out there somewhere.
I'm actually flying by the seat of my pants. I don't know what's going on
Oh,
half the
exciting.
time. But I think that I'll be coaching still with the London Real Academy because it's sort of like a hobby that I love that pays me. I don't know. That's the best kind, I guess. But
Right.
I love that. And I think that I will be a lot closer to having a home for female veterans opening up and being able to start getting my own homeless female veterans off the street and getting them through the program and graduating them back into life to help them thrive. I think that's a big part of my year plan, working on that, bringing that foundation, bringing Artemisia, the foundation, to life. In addition to that, I will be working on my podcast for sure.
Yeah.
I will have some speaking events that I'll be doing, so I will be speaking.
Yeah.
And oh, I forgot to mention that there is a small film that is just beginning on its process. And with any luck, it will actually be, I guess, a little closer to production by that point.
And so is this film something that you have something to do with?
Yes.
Yes, fill us in, fill us in.
Yes. This film is my baby. It is probably going to be just something, a small budget film to put in festivals, but to bring awareness about female veteran stories and what happens to women when they serve.
Thank
So
you.
the screenplay is in works right now, and step by step, I'm just gonna slowly walk towards getting this done, and hopefully it will bring awareness to what women experience while serving.
How beautiful. Life beyond yourself. That is awesome. And we're coming close to the end here, but if you could give your inner child some advice, if you were to go back to a time frame, maybe it was in your teens, maybe it was when you went through the big awakening in the most darkest, difficult place that you were in. What advice would you give yourself at that moment?
That's a really amazing question. Really amazing. I will tell her two things.
Mm.
I would say everything will be absolutely okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Stay strong. And remember this: you can create your own perfect life by the power of your thoughts.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
So if just know what you want and you can have it.
Yes,
That's what I tell myself.
that's beautiful. I agree totally. Your greatest strength and your most challenging weakness.
They're both the same.
Okay.
I love too much too easily.
Okay. Okay. Well, that is something that's amazing again, because many people don't have the capacity to love. But in there somewhere must be a huge empath, because only the person who's doing the amount of work that you're doing, so incredibly out there, that I can say that, you know, it is an honor to know you and to walk with you, beside you, alongside you. It's amazing, Kia. I don't know what to say. That's beautiful. What do you have to offer our audience? If they want to get a hold of you, if they need to know more about your work, if you can leave us with your parting words and your contact.
So first I'll give you where you can find me. If you are looking for positive words, then follow me on Instagram on my personal account, and that's at Kiativity. It's like positivity, but Kia. So that's Kia Tivity. And if you want to follow the Female Veterans Podcast, I am on Instagram at the Female Veterans Podcast, at FemVet Podcast on Twitter, and on my website, www.thefemaleveteranspodcast.com. You can check me out on Hot Topics for all sorts of interesting topics. We are live every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern on our Facebook page, Hot Topics Live. And if you miss that, you can see a replay or you can catch the podcast at Hot Topics, the podcast on all the platforms, as well as the Female Veterans Podcast on all the platforms, especially iTunes and Spotify. And let's see, I think that's where you can find me. And I do respond to messages and DMs and everything, usually as much as I can. Leave me a comment, give me a like, a share, follow me, all of that good stuff, and keep in touch with me. And as for parting words, I just want to say to everyone who is listening that you are loved. You are loved. And even if I don't know you, I send you love through my meditations every day. So I hope you feel it. It's all energy. And to you, Sal, you are an amazing woman. You are a guiding light in this world. Please do not ever lose that shine. I see you. My heart recognizes your heart. And I am so honored to have been a guest on your show. And with that, thank you so much. I love you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that brings us to a close. I'm Cylindrin Buller, your host from Uplifting Humans, where we honor, empower, educate, and inspire the listener. Tune in to Uplifting Humans, and you can go to upliftinghumans.com to see this wonderful interview all over again. And of course, we're also on Apple Podcasts. And until next time, thank you so much and have a beautiful day.